What's going on, everyone? We got another episode today, episode 6 of Finding Your Place. Today, I'm here with Phil Mosser of the Sportsman, and I wanted to bring him on and have him tell his story about kind of what's going on with him and his business and the struggles that he's facing with Montgomery County. Phil, I really appreciate you being on today.
Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Yeah, so let's just get right into the battle you're in right now. Tell us about your business. Tell us where you're located. Tell us the players involved, and let's just get into your story about the battle that you're in the middle of.
Okay, the Sportsman is a combination Exxon station, convenience store, campground, bait shop, and we're on the New River, just adjacent to the Interstate 81 bridge. And I've owned the place for 5 years, and immediately, within 2 weeks of purchasing the property, Montgomery County came and put a stop work order on some work that was being done, and then proceeded to cite me with violations of zoning codes and site plans. And so it's been 5 years of engineering reports, hydraulic engineers, dealing with FEMA issues, and it seems like every time I put out one fire, another one comes along. And so at this point, I think we're down to 2 citations, but those are, it's like I don't know how they're going to be dealt with. And if they do go away, I don't know, there's going to be some more. And there are other properties on the river, the junction, that I've actually given pictures to Montgomery County to show them, hey, they're doing the same thing we're doing. I don't want to get them in trouble, but and I see what they're doing is legal. I mean, they have permits, so I don't think I can get them in trouble. But how come we can't do it?
Yeah.
And I have a fellow I know who has property in Pembroke, which is in Giles County, and he's actually had the county approach him. He has nothing right now in the floodplain. Everything he has is above the floodplain. They've come to him with a federal grant to actually develop the floodplain in that area.
Wow.
And so I'm in Montgomery County, and conditions are a little bit different with the attitude of the government folks.
That is really disappointing to hear. I mean, it's disappointing. So you feel the moment you took over the place that they just pretty much started picking on you.
Well, the facts speak for themselves.
Because that's an established business that's been around for a long time, right?
It was redone in 2004, all engineering done, a state-of-the-art septic system, all done according to code, and no problems over the years. And as soon as I took possession, there were citations for things, not that I did, but for things that had been there for years that were not shown on the original site plan, but had been there, obviously been there for years. There was a railroad tie wall that looked like it had been there since the place was built. I was cited for that.
Was there a turnover in an administrative position that could have led to some trailblazer wanting to, come do what they're doing to you? Like, had there been someone in that spot that just kind of looked over things, or like what happened? What dynamic changed other than you taking possession and the old owner going away? Was there anything that changed in that regard?
Well, I didn't want to take it personally, and I treated everyone with kindness and fairness.
Yeah.
And so I could pretty quickly tell that there was something more than just the normal attitude, and it had to be something before me. And in researching it, I feel like there was something with the previous owners, and they had a split. And I was friends with one of the previous owners, is how I came to acquire the property.
Gotcha.
And I think in their split, there was some familial relationship with parties in the administration.
Gotcha.
But I could tell this is more than meets the eye, and that carried on over the years. And here last year there was a change in the administration, which I said, this is going to be good. This is, maybe I'll be able to deal with them now.
Yeah.
It's only gotten worse.
Right.
And so I feel like I've done everything I can. I've spent a lot of money on engineers, hydraulic engineers, civil engineers, attorneys. No one really wants to buck the system.
Yeah.
They all work with the system, and if they go against it, they won't get recommended. They won't get other projects. I'm probably a small fish for them, and they have much larger fish to fry.
Yeah.
And so the attorney I hired specifically said he'd try to work with them, and I said, well, will you fight them? And in the end, no, he wouldn't fight them. And as a matter of fact, I had told you, I just went to speak with another attorney. And in looking over some of the papers, he saw the attorney's name, and he saw that there had been an opportunity there to file an appeal. And he said, why didn't he file an appeal? And I said, well, he didn't want to fight the county. He did not want to go against them. Yeah. And so the reason I went to see this other fellow was because I heard he would stand up against the powers that be.
Right.
So it's difficult to find anyone who will do that.
Yeah.
He's now reviewing the papers and to see if there's a hope. And I said, listen, okay, so we win the battle. I know what happens. The war goes on. So what do you think, even if we win this battle, is it worth continuing on?
Yeah. And
he had brought it to my attention. He said, you've been doing this for 5 years. When do you have enough? And I said, wow, I didn't expect you to say that. I said, but the thought's been in my mind. When do I have enough? When do I say, I'm winning all these little battles, and in the end, more battles come up.
Yeah.
And I don't have the resources to keep up with them.
Yeah.
And if they want me, they got me, because I just can't continue doing this forever.
Sure.
And so how it kind of works is I give a little bit, then they consider the next thing. And so there's never any end agreement, which is what I would like. Like, okay, what can I possibly do where this will be over?
Yeah, no, just leave you alone.
Yeah, you just leave me alone.
Yeah. And
I can continue my business. And what can we do? What kind of an agreement? What can we come to that would be the end of it, that I won't next week hear, well, you got to do this now. Yeah. And so, I mean, one of the things that will be a never-ending thing if I agree to it is in the campground, they are saying that any RVs that come in there, I have to make sure that they're licensed and inspected, and I have to make sure that they maintain those. So that's kind of an impossible task. I mean, I don't know if Illinois requires inspections. I don't know if Arizona has inspections. So I'd have to learn the laws, and I'd have to check them and say, well, hey, next month your license expires. And it looks to me like your license is good, but your inspection is done.
They want you to be the DMV of your own park.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they have deemed that is what's necessary.
Wow.
For these RVs, if there is a flood. Now, as the law reads, I won't say as I read it, it's how it reads, is that RV parks are what is the preferred usage for floodplain areas because they can be removed. And we're not a flash flood area, so we'd have a lot of indication of a flood, and it's happened in the past. We move people out. So the goal, the spirit of the law is that you be able to remove the RVs from the site. Yeah. Well, they say, well, if they're not licensed, you can't get them out of there. No, that's not what the law says. The law says they need to be on their wheels, not impeded, and if they're self-propelled, ready to go, and if they're towable, they have to not have things obstructing them and be ready to be towed out of there. Yeah. But the license really doesn't have anything to do with the safety of the situation. Right. But so they've taken that and really kind of using it as a cudgel, which again is the letter of the law, which really doesn't say that, but that they've been putting that on me. Now, we had discussed this in the past with my previous attorney, and we determined I don't have the legal authority to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So I've been given a task that really I have no means of accomplishing it, no right to accomplish it, and so it's like a catch-22.
Yeah.
I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't. There's no way I can accomplish it.
So how are you able to maintain that business and still generate revenue as you're fighting this battle? Because I assume that's what you're doing. You're still putting people in there. You're just not conforming to what they deem to be of some sort of guideline or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're just doing it below what would be below board, because of the battle that you're in. You're trying to shake it out still, right?
I'm a lawbreaker.
Yeah.
So I'm a lawbreaker,
yeah.
And the attorney I saw the other day said, well, matter of fact, I just got another certified letter on my way to go see him.
Yeah.
And this one gives me 10 days to do these things, and after which he said I could even have criminal charges. I said, really? I said, this is beyond civil.
Wild.
This could be criminal. I said, that really shakes me. So
the county attorney is the one that is sending you these threatening letters.
No, this came from the zoning administrator.
Uh,
So what would happen next would be legal action. Just how that would transpire, I don't know.
yeah.
But as he said, it could be civil. It could be criminal.
Yeah.
So I need to somehow. I don't know how I would even do that. Do I take pictures of licenses? I don't know how I would exactly accomplish that task.
Right.
And there are 2 RVs which they want me to remove, which I have contested that. And so that is another bone of contention.
Gotcha.
So the attorney I've consulted is taking it under advisement, and he'll let me know next week if he feels that we've got something we can deal with.
So they just tell you what's required of you. They don't give you the actual map to how to perform that. To like how are you going to verify that? Even if you try to accommodate their request, do you have to send them a report? How does that? Do you just keep it in a file for 5 years? And what does that even mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know how to accomplish it, and I don't know if that's part of the process. Is that you can't? I can't be right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how I would do it and be right.
Yeah.
And it's a good point, because I've had this with other situations where you need to do this. Well, I do it. No, that's not how you do it.
Right.
Well, how do you want me to do it? Well, we can't tell you how to do it. You need to do it. And I go, okay. So give me some instructions I can follow.
Yeah.
And I will try to do it. But I've come to see that it's almost futile. So getting started just compounds the situation. I'm not going to be able to do it. So why am I even trying?
Wow. So I'm just interested in, are these any elected fish? I want to pinpoint the people that are harassing you. This is a moment that we hold people to the fire, right? In my opinion, like if these, and Marie, being, in my opinion, the next, 7th district elected congressional, legislator I'm glad she's kind of on your side and trying to help you out. But who's lined up that's an elected official that's not standing up for you? That's actually like an adversary of yours. Like we need to know who's able to influence and not standing up or not or actually maybe encouraging you to go away or something like that. Like who's available? Who else is available? Or who can the public pinpoint to know that they didn't stand up, or like who's all involved here?
Okay, that's a good question, and I've got 5 years worth of answers to give you.
Yeah.
So I've been to just about everybody. I've called about everybody, whether they're elected. The people I deal with are not elected. They're government officials, but we have a board of supervisors, and my own board of supervisor. He said, "Well, I'll try to fix that for you." I said, "I don't want it fixed. I want the law followed. I don't want favors.
Right.
I want the league." I said, "I want to follow the law. I'm not trying to break the law,
Right.
but I need the officials to follow the law as well.
Yeah.
So please, I don't want you fixing anything."
Yeah.
And so you get into the, I'll start at the top. I went to Morgan Griffith years ago, and he pretty much told me, which was shocking. He said, "I have no power over those people at all."
Yeah.
I said, "Really? You're a federal House of Representatives." He said, "The only thing that controls them is money." And he said, "I don't control the money." He said, "You need to go to your delegate," which at the time, well, I won't get into names, but you just said it, Marie March is running for that position.
Yeah.
Okay? So I've called everybody who's up the ladder from the folks I'm dealing with, and several of them wouldn't take my call. So no one, some said, "Oh, yeah, we'll see what we can do," and I'd never heard back from them.
Gotcha.
And so there, in my opinion, there is no accountability. And that goes to the county attorney as well, which is why I hired a lawyer, because we had some differences of, I won't even call it an opinion. It was some legal wording.
The interpretation of the law, right?
Well, he interpreted it and I read it.
Yeah.
And, so I went to the attorney who I hired, and I said, "Read this," with he and another attorney in his office. "Read this, you tell me what it says."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Well, it says what it says." And I said, "Okay, that's how it would be applied in law?" "Okay." I said, "You're hired. You need to go talk to the county attorney." That had gotten straight at the time. That's back now again, since I don't have that attorney anymore.
Yeah.
And that has been revisited again. So it didn't go away, which is why I've kind of lost trust in the system.
Yeah.
Because things that were corrected have come back. So we're revisiting things that had been agreed to before, quote unquote, verbally, right? So if I have any agreement now, I really need to have it in writing,
Yeah.
because I've lost trust in the verbal word. Right. So how I met Marie was after no one else caring, no one else doing anything or even showing any interest. When she was running for office, well, I had read about her for years, the problems that she has had.
Sure.
And even when she went to the Trump rally with her dad and the grief she caught from that, and I said, "Boy, she really catches it."
Yeah.
And she calls me and says, "I hear you're having some problems down there." And I go,
So she called you.
"She called me."
Nice.
She called me.
Wow.
And I go, "What is going on here?"
Yeah.
Here's somebody who cares,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the other people who can do something, I call them and they don't care. Well, they say, "Oh, yeah, we care," but they don't really.
Then they forget about you real quick.
Well, probably when we hang up.
Yeah.
And here's Marie calling me and really making an effort,
Yeah.
a big effort to do things. And even now, she calls me all the time, "How's things going?" And so just putting me in touch with you.
Yeah.
So I helped her in her election, which I think that might have also not been good as far as my situation.
Right.
And which I don't really care about
Yeah.
that. I mean, when you decide to do the right thing no matter what,
Yeah.
you don't
I agree.
you don't not do this because this could hurt me
Right.
in another category.
Yeah.
And I may not be around long enough till she gets elected, but I'm still I'm for her. I worked her campaign, and at the voting place over in Christiansburg,
Yeah.
I'd never done this before.
Right.
And so there was a line out to the road.
There was.
And people were saying that were working there. They said, "Well, we'll wait till about 10:30, and the line will go down, and we'll go get in line."
Never did.
10:30, the line's out to the road. They said, "Well, maybe a little longer." Well, at 1 o'clock, they had to put somebody at the end of the line.
Yeah.
And they said, wow, we've never seen so many people
Yeah.
come out.
Yeah.
And so landslide.
Yeah.
So it looks like the people have spoken,
Yeah.
and she is going to be a representative of the people.
I believe it.
And she is going to catch a lot of grief.
She is.
I hope
but she's ready for it.
Oh, I believe she is.
Yeah.
And she, there was another lady there who's, gosh, you know who she is. She's a Christiansburg Town Council lady.
Joanna
Hicks was
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
And after a little while, I said, this lady's sharp.
Yeah.
She is really good.
Yeah.
Now, she's a fighter, too.
She is.
And she catches it all the time.
She does.
And so we need more.
Yeah.
Well, we got two ladies there. We got
Yeah.
one in that's already in, I guess it's the Congress. But we need fighters.
We do.
And I believe that they are going to make a big change.
Yeah.
And I just hope that that the people will come out and support them
Yeah.
and see that, hey, we need representatives who are not going to go in and just join the club.
Agreed.
Right?
And I think the energy is, I mean, in my opinion, the energy is big out there right now in the conservative female, like ladies like Marie has gotten people fired up, in my opinion. So I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see her work and continue to do the things that she's been able to do for people like you. I mean, she was telling me about the fence to nowhere. Like, you had to put up a fence to nowhere. Like, tell us about this fence.
Well, this fence actually, so that's the county. Now I'm also dealing with the state.
Right.
So we border the Interstate 81 bridge, and they're redoing the bridge.
Right.
So this fence had been built for 40 years. It was built by the state when the bridge was built.
Right.
So our survey says that's where it is, and they don't really have a survey, but they came to me and said, hey, by the way, that fence is in the wrong spot. And I said, well, what do you mean? It's on my line. They said, no, we've just figured it out. It's not on the line. It should be 15 feet further over on your property. And I said, well, what's your survey say? And they said, well, we don't have a survey. But it's supposed to be 93 feet from the center line of the bridge. And I said, okay, why didn't you build it there then? If that's where it was supposed to be. They said, well, we just build fences. We don't. I said, you're telling me along the interstate there's fences everywhere. You just put fences up? You don't go with property lines? So I read the law of adverse possession. And I'm reading, and I said, well, this is very clear, particularly if that individual builds the fence. I mean, even if I built the fence and been there for 40 years, that would be the law of adverse possession, but even more so that they built the fence.
Right.
So I said, okay, well, it looks like I'm okay here. And the last sentence says, however, this law does not apply when you border government property. I went, uh-oh, looks like I got a problem. So the problem could be, now I've put up a bond and offered to buy that little piece of land, and because the problem would come in that the county, see, it goes back to the county, that my whole septic system is based on having this amount of land. My dump station is in that area. So if the county were someone that was easy to deal with, they might say, well, that's not a problem. We'll just readjust these things. Because the septic isn't over there. But knowing how the county is, they would go, looks like you defrauded us and you didn't own that land, so we're canceling your permit for the campground. So at this point, this has been, I think it's been 5 years with this too, close to 5 years.
Wow. When
I put up the bond and offered to purchase that little strip of land. And they said, well, we've got 3 years to determine this. And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, it's going to take us 3 years to build the bridge. So in effect, they were going to hold this over me in case maybe I wanted to cause them problems with the bridge. I don't know.
Wow.
It's like I kind of felt like it was a little bit of blackmail. Well, now it's been 5 years. And they've had problems with the bridge. It's taken longer than 3 years. It's now 5 years. It looks like it's going to take another, I don't know, year or two. So that's in a bit of limbo. That was in 2 of the citations where these problems with the boundary line with the state. So that's an ongoing thing as well.
Unbelievable.
So
you've been hit from every angle, and from day one of your ownership of this, and the previous owner had none of these problems.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
I mean, anyone with any sense would say, "Wow, something happened there."
Yeah.
What triggered that?
Yeah.
And so, of course, I haven't had an answer. I brought that up,
Yeah.
but of course, that doesn't get addressed,
Right.
and I doubt that it ever will.
This is so interesting. I mean, this is you know, the battle that you're fighting is I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine having to take that on, and the financial burden of it all, and the emotions of like them telling you might be under criminal, like, you know, you might, like, what are they going to do? Are they going to actually come out there and put you in cuffs? Like,
Well, you know, I never even thought of that.
yeah,
But when this attorney that I saw the other day mentioned criminal charge, wait, criminal charge? Just
Right.
what would be criminal? What am I doing that's criminal?
Yeah.
Well, not following what they say, I suppose. I haven't gotten a clear indication of that as
Yeah.
just what I have done that would be determined as being criminal.
yeah,
But you know, Montgomery County and Blacksburg, and I don't know if this is common knowledge with everyone, but in the contractor industry, it's known these are difficult places to do business.
everybody knows that.
Do you know that? Okay.
Everybody knows
okay.
that. Yeah.
I didn't know if everyone knew that.
Everybody knows that.
And you know, there was a zoning administrator from another county, which I won't mention, but he kind of explained it to me. He said, you know, there's the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. He said, now, if I want to stop a project, he said, I can go with the letter of the law. I can keep anybody from doing anything anytime I want.
Yeah,
He said, but that's not my job.
right.
He said, now, it's an awesome responsibility because I have this power to use.
Yeah,
And that's a responsibility to me. He said, but some people use it in the wrong way.
yeah,
So, for instance, you have the letter of the law, which would be making me do all these little things. No, the spirit is we want to get these vehicles out of here if there's a flood.
yeah,
The letter of the law is making me do all these little things that have nothing to do with getting these vehicles out of here at the required time.
yeah,
And that, in fact, puts a burden on you where you forget about what the real reason was.
yeah,
And so I'd never heard it explained so well, but he takes that responsibility seriously.
yeah,
And he said, my job is for the people. I'm here to make sure things are built correctly
yeah,
and safely. He said, but I'm not here to keep people from doing things. You know, West Virginia, I think they still don't require building permits.
wow,
Now, years ago, I had some land up near Snowshoe, and I went down to the building office. So I need to get a building permit. They said, you don't need building permits. I said, well, I'm going to put a septic in. Go ahead. Said, wait a minute. I don't have to get a building permit for anything. They said, no.
wow,
They said, now what we do around here, if you don't like what your neighbor does, you buy enough land, you don't have to see your neighbor. Now, I'm not really for that. I think
Yeah.
there needs to be some regulations. But when you over-regulate, it becomes a problem as well.
I mean, my philosophy on government is protect the consumer, make it fair play between the businesses, make sure that people are not taking advantage of others, fair play, freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Just and game on after that.
Yeah.
So like what they're doing to you is they're stripping revenue away from you. They're stripping your mental. Like this has got to be mentally taxing on you, just having to get up and deal with this every single day, knowing that your business is in jeopardy. You know, like the government is harassing you to the point where you probably already thought about, why am I even doing this? You know, like why even continue on with this project and like have this stress in my life? So like that's not the government's role. The government's role is to encourage opportunities. Like you're producing revenue that's going to supply taxes for the services that run the government. You know, like they should be an encouragement of that, not trying to be of detriment to that.
But I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And so the financial part, that's one thing. The mental part, yeah, I deal with that. And I've always seen some light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
But I'm getting to where I'm starting to lose that.
Right.
And I'm not a quitter,
Yeah.
which is a good thing and a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because there comes a time, a wise man knows when to quit the game.
Yeah.
and move on.
Yeah.
And so I'm having to weigh that all the time. Like, when do I just, and how do I do that?
Yeah.
Would I just walk away? I mean, I have employees, I have people that are depending on me.
Yeah.
And so there's those things to think about.
Yeah.
And but those are things I do struggle with. Yeah. And what I'm going to do with it, I don't know. Yeah. I'm hoping, I just keep hoping that the lights are going to turn on and go, oh, okay, we're seeing the light. And that's, my board of supervisor asked me, he said, do you really think they don't know what they're doing? I said, no, I know they don't know what they're doing. So we have the zoning administrator, both the old one and the new one, who deal with these floodplain issues. Mm-hmm. But they're not certified floodplain administrators. Okay. Now, this has taken me years to study these things and see what these laws say. Right. So, for instance, the first thing, the first interaction I had with the zoning administrator, she read to me from the Montgomery County floodplain overlay. Said there are no structures allowed to be erected in the floodway. And I went, wow. I said, how did this place ever get built? So I go look up the regulations myself, and I read it. It said, there are no structures allowed to be erected in the floodway unless the regulations in this chapter are followed. So, you see, I didn't get the whole story.
Right.
It's like Paul Harvey, the rest of the story. So, no, there are regulations to be followed. And so when you don't know, you haven't studied these things, how can you be safe? You say no to everything. You don't let anybody do anything.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to make a decision. I'd have to study this. And the real arrogance is that there is a lady in the zoning office that is a certified floodplain administrator. Why can't I deal with her?
Right.
And, the regulations say you should have someone who is schooled in this, and it doesn't have to be an employee. You could hire an engineer who would do this when you have things that need to be handled. Now, I have friends, I came from Tidewater, right, from the Virginia Beach area.
Yeah.
I've called friends and said, how do you deal with, there's floodplains everywhere down there.
Yeah, definitely.
They said, no, everybody knows what they're doing. The engineers know. The administrator, everybody's got a zoning administrator who they either have a certified floodplain administrator or they're one. Right. Usually they have someone because it's a full-time job, and the zoning administrator is a full-time job. Yeah. They said, no, there's no problem. Everybody knows what's expected, and that's the real problem. I read the law, and I said, well, this is what I need to do. And they go, no, you can't do anything, nothing. So, you see, that's how you play it safe. You just say no. You don't have to make a decision when you say no. And that's really how I see things progressing. As I present it to them, look, here's what it says. No. We're playing it safe. Well, they don't say we're playing it safe. They just say, no, that's not how we read that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, everything in me right now says, if I were you, I would want to rush this up to the judge and have the judge make a decision, but I know there's heavy risk in that. You'd like to just handle this outside of the judge's gavel. That's going to take a lot of time and money and frustration and harassment for them they're trying to manipulate you into decisions that they deem to be of the law. But until the judge's gavel falls, I don't think anything means anything other than them coming to arrest you because they think that you're doing something criminal. Yeah. So if I were you, I would just want that judge's decision so I know exactly what I have to do.
Well, these are pretty complicated issues.
Yeah.
So presenting it to a judge, now he's going to give more credence to a government official. And these are complicated things. I'm going to give you that. I've studied it for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's not easy to present the case. It's not easy to find a lawyer who can present the case.
Yeah, because they might damage their opportunities with that government agency,
well,
right?
It's lawyers are not versed in this either. Is why I'd have to work very closely with a lawyer to present these things. But then we need a judge. Now, in my opinion, FEMA should have an oversight committee where they judge these things.
Yeah.
And because it is difficult. Now, the other problem is there are no records for the river where we are. So for me to even do engineering, you see, I had to get no-rise certificates for several of these violations. And there's no records for the river. So what do? Well, local engineers had no ideas about it. So I contacted a hydraulic engineer from Charleston, West Virginia. They're on the New River. They do a lot of this. He said, well, they're building the bridge. They have to have records, and I can use those and interpolate it with the dam, which is upriver, and come up with no-rise certificates. So he contacted the dam. They wouldn't give him the records. So Montgomery County is supposed to have those records. They are supposed to have reviewed those records.
And it's supposed to be public knowledge, right?
It's supposed to be public knowledge. So they had to file a Freedom of Information Act to get these records.
Gotcha.
And so we got the records, and then it's funny. My attorney yesterday, he saw the no-rise certificate. I mean, it's like a book.
Yeah.
And there's one for each of these items that we did. He said, can I have this and look at it? I said, yeah. And when you're done, I want you to guess how much that cost. Just give me an estimate. You see it's high dollar, right? Well, he was able to do these no-rise certificates. So that got rid of a couple of citations. And they were kind of surprised that I was able to do it. But to engineer the river, it would be $30,000. And that's really what would be required, because as it stands now, our side of the river is determined as a floodway. The other side of the river is Pulaski County.
Yeah.
They do have records for that side of the river.
Wow.
And that's not a floodway. So I said, well, we're on this side. We have no records. That side has floodplain studies, and it's not a floodway.
If I were gambling, I would have said it would have been the other way around.
Well,
to be honest,
it would. There's a FEMA regulation that whatever you're allowed to do on one side of the river, you have to be allowed to do it on the other side of the river.
Yeah.
My point in bringing this up is that it's screwed up.
Yeah.
FEMA needs to go back and take a look at this.
Yeah.
I don't believe we're in a floodway, and I've even invited the floodplain administrator. Well, she comes by there all the time. You've been by here in floods. You can see this isn't a floodway.
Yeah.
There's no current through here at all, right? It's like a backwater. And so you can see that. You know, do you need a study? Just look at it.
Yeah.
But at least it needs to be looked at and would not judge us by records that are, well, non-existent to begin with.
Yeah.
And with the river on the other side, not classified as a floodway. So we're at the intersection there of Radford, we're Montgomery County, and then across the river is Pulaski County.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some reconciliation there in the records. Well, that brings up another matter. I tried to get annexed to Radford because we're like an island there.
Yeah.
The other side of the bridge is Radford. If you go just up, you cross the Little River, is Pulaski County, and we're there by ourselves. We have Radford police officers come in there all the time. We have more Radford people coming in there. And
it's a Radford address.
It's a Radford address.
Yeah.
Now, I called to see about that, and they said they'd made an agreement with Montgomery County and that they would not annex any more Montgomery County land. And I said, has anybody ever been annexed into Montgomery County from Radford? No. I wonder why that is.
Right.
Well, so the attorney I spoke with the other day said, he said that might be a possibility because that law was meant for another area to prevent. I won't go into what he told me it was about, but you being down there, you may have a cause that you have more in common with Radford and with with rescue facilities and so forth. Like if we have to call the police, they have to come quite a ways. Where Radford is
emergency
right
services makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he's going to revisit that as well.
Yep. I mean, if somebody was to get in a spot in the river and like they needed CPR or resuscitation or anything like that, they need to get from the Radford services need to be called, not the Montgomery County stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when we call the police, Radford can be there much quicker than Montgomery County.
You do have calls. You do have a lot of calls.
Well, it's happened in the past.
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a bit of time for them to come down there.
Yeah.
So we're going to revisit that.
Yeah. Well, man, I want the community to show up for you. I think that this is a compelling story. I think anybody traveling down, getting off exit 105 that needs some gas should come down and see you. And if you've never been to this place before, it's pretty much as you're turning, like you're going down to like, you can get to Claytor Lake down through there too, right?
Claytor Lake, it's some of the best fishing in the New River.
Yeah.
So, I'd driven across the bridge there and looked down on that place for years, and I said, wow, that's a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
When I found out where it was and what it was, and so I said, that has the three key attributes in real estate.
Yeah.
You're a real estate man.
Yeah.
I'm a real estate investor.
Yeah.
You know the three key attributes.
Location.
There you go.
Yeah.
And, I was told immediately by the zoning administrator, she said, why did you buy this place being that it's on the river? And I said, I bought it because it is on the river.
Yeah.
And see, that was a problem for her.
Right.
And it was an opportunity for me. And so I understand her thinking is she doesn't want anything on the river. And, I appreciate people's opinions.
Yeah.
But when you're a government official, you need to follow the law.
Yeah.
Your opinion should go over here, and here's the law. And you shouldn't take the law and say, well, I'm going to use this to get my opinion put through here.
Yeah.
And I do feel that's been part of the case as well.
Yeah.
As another one is the new administrator said the law for these camp RVs is so people won't live in RVs permanently. I said, "Real?" I said, "No, I know people sell their houses, buy an RV, and travel, and they live in their RV.
Yeah,
that's not against the law.
Right?
There's no laws.
So because they're against it, they think everybody should be against
exactly.
it. That's
I said,
ridiculous.
No, it's meant so that the RV can be moved, not so they won't live in it.
Right.
I mean,
that's the purpose.
Exactly. You're trying to and I've got that in writing.
Yeah.
You're trying to put your opinion and keep these people from living there permanently, right? When it's not meant for that. So
wow.
That's been another
wild.
Interesting thing that transpired.
That is really wild that these people, mainly non-elected people, are trying to push their agendas and opinions on people's lifestyles and livelihoods.
Yeah, but they're supported by the people who should be holding them accountable.
Yeah.
Are not doing it.
Yeah.
Each level as it goes up, not holding those below them accountable, and that's really, as I see, the big problem.
Aren't these elected officials a part of the hiring process? Like, how do these unelected people even get a position in this power role without some sort of check and balance from the elected people?
I don't really know how the process works.
We need to figure that out.
And but if they did, I don't know that would make a difference. It's you see Johanna Hicks over there.
Yeah.
She's an elected official.
Yeah.
And the rest of the elected officials wanted to vote her out.
Yeah.
No, she's elected by the people.
Yeah.
And you want to vote her out? You don't have the power to do that. So
Yeah.
where do you even get the idea
Right.
that you could possibly do that?
Yeah.
That's a problem in itself that you think that.
Yeah.
And I hope she gets elected mayor.
We are in support of that.
Yeah.
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 For sure. Well, hey man, this was a great show. We want to have you back to give updates as they come. Like, let's stay connected. Let's just continue to tell your story here, and just get progress reports from you every now and then, just to kind of see where you are. And as things conclude or some big things happen, maybe have you come back on and just share with us what you're dealing with, and ask the community to come out and support. Like I said, in any way possible. I really just appreciate you coming on and telling your story.
Well, thanks for having me, and I hope I can give you some good news at
Me
some
too,
time.
me too.
And hey, what transpires, and I had hoped when Marie won the primary that maybe it would change the atmosphere a little bit, and folks would start just following the regulations as they're written. But I've seen it's almost gone the other way. It's like a doubling down in the other direction.
Well, I think when she actually takes the seat and she's actually in these people's face as the elected person for the people, maybe some things can change.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping.
Well, as Morgan Griffith told me, that position has some control because they control the funds.
Yeah.
And money is all that really speaks to them.
Yeah.
And unbridled power it can only be held back with taking the funds from them.
Yeah.
And but at this point, I don't see any fear in these officials. It's like a doubling down.
Yeah.
And so we'll see what happens.
Well, best of luck to you. And like I said, if we can be of any source of help, or you want to call us up and vent, just let us know what's going on. We're there for you.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, Scott.
Yeah. Well, that's episode 6 today. We appreciate you guys watching. Subscribe, share, comment. Any questions about what he's got going on, ask him, so you guys can be fully educated of what's kind of going on in the small businesses and what he's dealing with and the harassment he's trying to get through. So yeah, episode 6. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.